It's great to be back in Sweden after 2.5 years of being stuck in my house with my 3 dogs. And so my dogs are missing me a lot, and I'm connected to my dogs and they're connected to me. So they're just learning to be without dad right now. My kids are already 31 and 29, have their own houses, so they don't miss me anymore, which is sad. I'm going to try to give you as best as I can a view into what physical literacy is, and so that you can take that information and plan for your communities. In the world, we're in a lot of trouble in various ways. I'm an optimist, so I'm always looking to improve society as opposed to worry about it. But physical literacy is not a new concept. It's been around for 100 years. But it's really resurged in the last 20 and really on fire worldwide. And I'll give you some insight into that. This is a beautiful picture of the mind with the hands. And it shows, to me, as a trained neuroscientist, I studied brains most of my life. And I wanted to understand this part because it controlled what you did and how wrong I was. It is true that your brain controls how you move. But through physical literacy, what I learned and what this image reminds me of is that your movement makes brain. Brain makes movement, but your movement changes your brain. And that's in science called embodied cognition. But that word, a lot of people don't get it. But to me, brain makes movement, movement makes brain. So your brain is what you do. And that's an interesting thing in a societies where the activity levels are dropping. What is that doing to our children? What is it doing to all of us? So this is a paper that just came out 2 weeks ago, and I'm going to start with it. I happen to be one of the authors, but Natalie, who came to me from one part of Canada where they only speak French, and then she moved over to the province next to me, which only grows cows, and then moved to my province to work with me for 2 years. And why that's an interesting story for you is that I'm a research scientist at the university where I'm normally funded by Health Research Council. So health funds me. But in the last 6 years, my funding is no longer from health. It is from Social Science Humanities Research Council of Canada, which means that they see my work as social innovation. Completely different thinking than medical research, which I used to be. Now I'm a social scientist trying to change society. Interesting. But this paper is going to hopefully spark your interest because it's the only paper ever published. It was funded by the WHO to be free for everybody to read. But I'm going to give you a summary. What Natalie did was she measured kids 6 to 13 years of age prior to the pandemic, and then she measured the same kids during the pandemic. I always ask her, how did you know the virus was coming? That's a joke. But she didn't release the virus. I thought maybe she did, to do the study. But what it showed was, not surprising to Swedish people or Canadians or Americans, 85% of the children that she measured, the same people. Other people have done studies where they measure what's happening in kids now, but they didn't have the same information from prior to the pandemic. 85% of children reduced their activity levels. That's sad, but not surprising. The second one is that twice the number of children than regular were not meeting 60 minutes a day of sweating, which is the standard here in Sweden and in Canada. But the 2 items in yellow that were very unique, because Natalie's a physical literacy researcher, she said, I want to learn about physical literacy. And one of the things that physical literacy demands is that you ask children, based on Article 12 of the Convention of the Rights of the Child, which you enacted into law. Article 12 is you listen to the voice of children. And as a result of that, she asked the question, do you value movement to children? What a simple question. Do you value movement at home? Do you value movement at school? Do you value movement with family? And as a result of the pandemic, as adults, we suppressed their movement. Many countries did. And they felt that. And as a result of that, not only did they reduce their physical activity, but they also changed their belief in the value of movement. And if you change a belief in a person, it's much more difficult to change afterwards. But the interesting thing was Natalie not only measured the children, she measured the parents as well of those children. And one of the beautiful things was that the 15% of children that didn't reduce during the pandemic, the only factor that protected them was being physically literate. What's that? Now, you should, I want that. Is that like a vaccine? Yes, it is perhaps a vaccine, perhaps. So this is exciting. It's free. You can download it. You can read it another time. But the summary is there. But I want to provoke your mind as to why you might be interested in this. The most important thing for this group to realize, those two words are very different. Looking at the world from a physical activity point of view, which we've been doing for 100 years in all of our countries, is cool, and it's useful to see the world from a physical activity lens. But looking at it from a physical literacy lens is very different. And maybe that's its secret, is that we're seeing the world differently through the lens of physical literacy. So this is a physical activity slide. So I like to think, I put my head in, I'm thinking as a physical activity person, or I'm thinking as a physical literacy person. Each one of these arrows, my graduate students spent years to make this diagram. It's minutes to make. But each arrow means there's 100 research studies supporting it. So it's not a trivial thing to make. But here you can see that in the center is low physical activity. And if you have low physical activity, all of these things in blue, which concern the World Health Organization and Swedes, are diseases that are related to physical inactivity. And every single one of those, 26 of them, are strongly associated with it. That's been known for a long time, actually. What's also interesting is that if you have low physical activity, it also relates to injuries, the production of injuries in black, and psychological conditions like depression. So because of great science, which we've been fostering for 100 years, our science has given us knowledge that allows us to depict that. But this knowledge is not followed. Wisdom means that you follow knowledge. We are the most knowledgeable societies ever, but we're not the most wise yet. And so the game is, even though many people understand this, and for 50 years people have been saying, get more active so you don't get disease. We still say that. Physical literacy would never say that. We want to move because we like to move, not because I'm afraid of getting a disease. Very different viewpoint. But this is important knowledge. I don't discount, this is my science. But how do you change society is the big question. So my government, like yours, and I'm part of the society that makes this. This is our 24-hour guidelines for children 5 to 17. They better sweat more. They better step more. They better sleep better and sit less. Yeah, but if you hand that document to a parent, to a teacher, to anybody, they read it and go, yeah, but what do I do? I live in a movement-suppressed culture. How do I operationalize that? It actually means 80 minutes a day, not 60. You think 60, I know you do. It's actually 80. And yesterday I did an exercise called, which is fun in Swedish, hey, hey, go. We could do it today, where we walk around together here as a group, And then when you see somebody in the eyes, you go, hey, hey, which is very Swedish. And then you say, how many minutes should kid get a day? And yesterday we did this with 70 people, and it ranged from 60 to 180. Not just 60. 180 is optimal, 60 is minimum. Interesting, right? We could have done that again for adults. What should adults get? But if you actually read our document down here, it's 80 minutes a day. 60 minutes of sweating, 20 more minutes of other things. 80 minutes a day? Put that in your life of your child. And if you're an adult driving your children around every day, you become a spectator instead of a participant. Interesting, right? So these guidelines are important, but no guidelines ever have changed society. These are good information, but are not social change models. So this is another physical activity slide, not physical literacy. This is from my lab. And we measured the bones, the femur, of 21-year-old people. I would call those children. My kids are 31 and 29. They're still children to me. But if you look at those bones, that person, 21 years of age, steps only 3,500 steps a day. Physical activity thinking. This child, 21-year-old, steps for their life 16,000 steps a day. You don't have to be a scientist to understand that diagram. It's pretty easy. I want those bones, right? It's that simple. And we did a big study. It took me 3 years to get this data because it's very hard to find these people and very hard to find these people. But I needed to see that but even showing you that, you're all going, hey, that's a nice picture. I know you are. But that doesn't change your behavior once again. That's a fear tactic. We don't like that. But it's useful, nice to see. Bones change in density and architecture. Better density, better thickness, better architecture. Thin walls, circular, poor architecture. This is good stuff to know, but it doesn't change behavior. So this is a Swedish research study about a couple of years ago. Ellen Ekblom wrote this paper. Very important paper. And in the diagram right up there is the first ever Canadian ad promoting fitness in Canadians in 1973. In 1973, there was a 60-year-old Swedish person wearing a velour tracksuit beside a 30-year-old Canadian, and they're running through the woods. And Pilo, could you join me up here for a second? Can you just pop the hat off for a second? Right beside me. So this is the 30-year-old Canadian and the 60-year-old Swede. Pretty similar, right? We're running through the forest. And here's the ad in 1973. Camera goes on to Pilo, 30-year-old Canadian, and goes, a 30-year-old Canadian is as fit as a 60-year-old Swede. Gets fit, Canada. That's the ad. You can look it up. Now, thanks, Pilo. Great Canadian. Good work. He's got a Canadian physical literacy shirt on, I noticed. So that was 1973, the first ever Participation ad, which is our physical activity promotion agency in Canada, which has been funded every year for a large amount of money. And our physical activity has slid down beautifully since 1973, just like yours. United States is a tree that's fallen. Canada's here. Sweden's here. When she published this study, she demonstrated that the cardiovascular fitness of the population was on straight line decline from 1995 to 2017. Swedish. Not good. Almost tearful. So that ad in 1973, a 30-year-old Canadian was as fit as a 60-year-old Swede. I'm going to do it again, 2022. You ready? And I'll keep the Canadian 30. You can stay there, Pilo. 30-year-old Canadian is as fit as a 40-year-old Swede. You felt that? Interestingly, not a single country in the world is protected. Canada looks at Sweden, what are they doing? The WHO, which I visit frequently in Switzerland, looks at you. What's Sweden doing? That's why I'm here so much, because I want you to change because you'll lead us. I know that's not lagom. I know that's not lagom, but I believe that. So let's get into it. What is physical literacy? Well, the good news is in Umeå, Sweden, we've got Tom from here. They had, prior to the pandemic, the first European International Physical Literacy Conference, well attended. Many nations from around the world came to Umeå. In Canada, a few months before that, the Human Rights Museum of Canada, where I live right next door to it, very important place to Canadians, hosted the International Physical Literacy Conference in Canada, because in Canada, we believe physical literacy is a human right. That's very advanced thinking to say such a thing publicly. And it's like as advanced as saying the Convention of the Rights of Child is law. That's pretty cool. So this is, and the next one will be next year in New York City. Pretty cool. And it's hosted by the New York Roadrunners, which runs the New York Marathon, because they make $50 million a year getting people to run marathons, so they can make a nice conference in New York City next year. So what's cool about this is that the World Health Organization, who I worked on this document with, created a document called More Active People for a Healthier World prior to the pandemic, just prior. And for the first time ever, the WHO said, we're not going to only use prevent disease, get active as the approach. They said, we're going to use physical literacy. So for the very first time ever, you can download the document. This document includes physical literacy. And the first goal of this document is to inform the world of what physical literacy is. Nice goal. My government, the Public Health Agency of Canada, who I work with, created this document like 1973 again. Let's get moving, Canada. But they said, how do we fix inactivity? And the number one answer in this document, this is the World Health Organization one, and you're going to get these slides, by the way. They're yours. You can read that. That's the WHO statement, but this is the Canadian statement. Very different. The common vision is guided by 5 principles that are the foundation to increasing physical activity and decreasing sedentary behavior in Canadian society. And the first principle is physical literacy. A complete paradigm shift away from get active, Canada, don't get disease, which is a physical activity way of thinking. So what does that look like? What does this physical literacy look like? So for us, we're really trying to move physical literacy's biggest goal towards a world intrinsically valuing movement, not doing movement to not get disease, not doing movement to look a certain way, not doing movement, but because you love it. That's as simple as it is. That's very different. And I'll be more detailed, of course. So that's why in Canada, we see physical literacy as a social innovation engine. So children have potential, don't they? That baby can't read potential yet. But in the Swedish education system, that baby will be able to read that word at some stage. We value that. That baby will be able to do math, literacy, numeracy. But you just signed on to the Convention of the Rights of the Child for law. Canada ratified it. You made it into law. And if you read Article 29 of the Convention of the Rights of the Child, it says, and I'll quote, to develop a child's personality, talents, mental and physical abilities through school to its fullest potential. You signed on to that. Brave of you. You're also going like, but I get that. But even if we aspire to that statement, which I do, like you, it mentions the word physical as much as mental. And our schools focus on the mental more than the physical. Our societies do. And so, to me, this is an opportunity to do the right thing, which has been mentioned multiple times before. But interesting enough, I've got potential. Society has to offer me potential too. But at my age, many people look at me and go, oh, don't lift too much. Don't go walking on ice. They put me into fear state. They're saying, but I need challenges just as much as a child does. And often we don't provide those challenges. We say, oh, you're old now. This is interesting. So physical literacy doesn't matter about age, doesn't matter about ability, doesn't matter about culture. It's about potential and giving opportunities through community to develop potential. So when we talk about sustainability, which is a Swedish thing, that's the definition we use for physical literacy. Human sustainability. Sleet stark. Sleet stark people. That's what physical literacy is about. Making durable people for life. Finding whether they do sport, recreation, whether they do performance arts, vocation, activities of daily living, shoveling snow, you have to be slitstark. My Swedish is getting better. Jag älskar Sverige. Yeah? So physical literacy has two goals. Overall, active participation. You'll notice it doesn't say physical activity. The goal is not make 60 minutes mess, sweaty messes. The goal is to make people participate in society through movement. And then that'll happen to get physical activity. And to be adequately safe, not totally safe, not safe as possible, safe as necessary. Not surplus safety, adequate safety. Surplus safety is dangerous, very bad. Adequate safety is what physical literacy wants. So if we accomplish this goal and they never change, that means people will thrive or flourish. And that means people can participate in community through movement. And that means, like Swedish people, Canadians people want, therefore, if the nation is physically literate and you have a physical literacy enriched community, you'll have better health equity, better social equity, and greater human capital or human potential. So it still doesn't tell you what physical literacy is yet, right? It's like, okay, I'm following. So this is a paper we wrote a few years back, very popular. And I don't know why it's popular, but it's popular because now scientists like it. I know that because I see them referencing it. But to me, when John Kearney and I wrote, I'm always the last author because I'm just the instigator. But in the end of the day, John is an Australian, lives in Queensland, University of Queensland, the head of the kinesiology department there. John and I wrote this because we thought, we know that if you're physically active through habitual activity, activities of daily living, through dedicated exercise, friskus sweatus, occupational activities, scholastic activities, sport, recreation, we know already scientifically, if you do physical activity, for sure, you get better physical health, better mental health, better social health. It's not a discussion. But the missing piece is what makes you physically active. So all we did was put physical literacy in front of that. We propose this. Some science already confirming this, but it takes a long time with science. We didn't do science on the Convention on the Rights of the Child. There's no science on that, but you adopted it into law. Interesting point. We in science have to do a job, but society also. So we promoted, said, physical literacy might be the precursor to physical activity, and therefore, if you're physically active, you get the good things happening. So here's the cycle. If you're going to work with physical literacy, there are two definitions in the world that are prominent. The International Physical Literacy Association definition, which you can read, and my other favorite is the Australian Institute of Sport definition. If you take those two definitions and squish them together, I like definitions, but they never tell me what to do. So about 60% of physical literacy researchers believe that physical literacy is not only a definition, but a process. And there's many situations in science where that's true. This is the process, which matches perfectly with the definition, by the way. And what it says, because the words of physical literacy definitions are here. Physical literacy says, if we develop movement competence in people, that ability to move on land, ice, snow, water, air, the ability to move in front of people independent of their ability, culture, sex, gender, that's what we want. Develop movement competence in people, and at the same time, develop confidence. And therefore, we know from other science that if you're competent and confident, you're more motivated to participate. See the cycle? Turn on that cycle is the game. You'll notice that most of the words there are psychology. There's only one physical word. Physical literacy is mostly, this is social, this is a social term, psychology, physical. So it brings together mental and physical into one. Because if you have a mental health problem in Sweden, you had better be talking about physical things. If you have a physical problem, you had better be talking about mental things. And many of our projects don't do that, even in Sweden. You talk about, I want people to be resilient. Okay, great, but if you don't talk about physical things, what are you doing? Or I want people to be physically active, but you don't talk about resilience. They have to go hand in hand today, and physical literacy does that. This is what's called the core cycle. But it makes sense. There's nothing really fantastic about that. It's what people would have been doing in 1970 anyway, but now we've got words for it. So the game about this, as I said, it's about all the different physical environments, but all the different social cultural environments. Every Swedish child should feel comfortable moving with every other Swedish person. Would you agree? I don't have to do science to make you go, yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, but how do you do that? How do you have a child feel comfortable moving with every other child independent of ability, culture, or race? Physical literacy talks about that directly because it's inclusive by design. You cannot think about physical literacy without being inclusive. And so the contexts of movement are critical to people in physical literacy. So the whole game is, this is an animation, but it's good. We like to think about a society that can turn the green light on to this cycle through sport, recreation, physical education, performance arts. And if you can activate the cycle, that means that a person, 62 or 12, if you activate the cycle, will have a positive movement experience, not a negative one. Negative ones you remember for a long time. They stick in your head for 40 years. Somebody did this to me, as opposed to did this for me. So we try to avoid making this cycle go red, and we like to make it go green, and that's why it's so powerful for sport, recreation, and performance arts. I joined the circus at 50. Me, I joined the circus at 50. So in Canada, I'm the head of all circus industries in Montreal. Cirque du Soleil, you may have heard of it. 5,000 employees, 1,400 performers. There's who I work with. Because I saw them as the most physically literate people in the world. And I said, I want to study you, but I want to help you too. But I also want to study you so I can help others. No joke. So I spend 1 week of every month in Montreal with my circus world. I used to be, for Canada, the head of biathlon. I shoot and ski really well. And I went from high performance sport to high performance circus. Interesting. I joined the circus at 50. If my mom was alive, she'd be, you joined the circus? Like, what? But this cycle is very well done in circus. That's why I study them. And there's some cool things. So let's continue on. So we write papers, of course. You can read these, I'll give you them. We wrote a paper few years back where we tied physical literacy to resilience in children. Resilience is the ability to overcome adversity, to deal with challenges in life. General, not movement challenges, general challenges. And this paper shows the strongest ever prediction of physical literacy in children, of resilience in children, is not fitness, is not physical activity, it's physical literacy. It is a very strong predictor. Physical literacy, by creating challenges for children that are appropriate to them, lets them overcome their negative emotion, which many people have before they start a movement, and then gives them positive emotions as a result of that movement experience. That's physical literacy. Constructing positive challenges, a level of challenge to every level of ability. So everybody gets engaged. So this paper here, my friend Phil Jeffries from Ireland, I said, don't put me on this paper. I wanted him to write what he thought was the proper way to construct positive challenges. You can look this paper up. What does that look like? How do you construct a positive challenge as a parent, as a coach, as a teacher, as a leisure pedagogue, as an instructor in performance arts, ballet? How do you do it? So we're getting better at it now because we're beginning to get science about it. So this is the latest diagram of physical literacy. It looks complicated, right? It's like too many arrows. But no, it's actually not. It still has the same core. But let's just walk it through. Now, I don't know if I have time, but maybe we could make some people move. Would you guys, because physical literacy person talking to people sitting down like feels a little weird. So I brought some stuff with me here. Would you like to move? It's okay? I'm asking, it's okay? Okay, so what we're gonna do is I'm gonna get some fancy equipment because I work in the circus industry and this is really fancy stuff, very expensive equipment. And it's not for blowing your nose. So I've got enough, one for everybody. And I would love everybody to come on down over here. We've got more than enough room and not a lot of movement. Come on over here and come grab a scarf. No, this is good. We'll use these. So come grab a scarf. Don't be shy. I don't bite often. I have been known to bite, but not lately. So what we're going to do is you're going to take your scarf, and all I want you to do is throw with your right, catch with your right. Throw with your right, catch with your right. Throw with your right, catch with your right. Throw with your right, catch with your left. Whoa. Throw with your left, catch with your left. Throw with your right, catch with your left. Now it's tough. Don't have to be perfect. And I'm sorry I'm putting smiles on your faces by moving. It's terrible. Anyway, so that was pretty easy. So I bet you we can throw with the right, catch on their foot. Oh, that's crazy. Yeah. See if you can do it. Do it again. Give it a try. Yeah, see it again. That's cool. Oh, that's so good. Okay, this is good. Next one, you guys ready? We can go crazy here. I bet you can throw it up in the air and go, blow it higher and catch it on your head. Ready, go. Try it again, try it again. Try it again. Oh, there we go. Yeah, do it again. Yeah, there you go. It's like, it works. It works. There we go. And I almost can't stop you moving now. It's terrible, having people wanting to move. Now, if I videotape this, my phone's over there, and I showed this to 12-year-olds, they all think you would have been smoking pot. And I'm like, what are they doing? They're having fun moving as older adults. Play is not something for kids, it's for us too, right? And we forget that. We did an experiment in Canada where I took a bunch of gray-haired professors and I took them in a white van, big van, and we got out at a playground. And we all went out, and the job was, we're all gonna use every piece of equipment. No joke. Had a nice film crew there, and everybody had to do it. So there's you know the 2 slides? One of the professors sat down beside a kid who was like 6, and the kid was like this, horrified that an adult was gonna use the slide beside them. But after a couple of slides, all of a sudden, intergenerational play started happening. But my favorite part was this. One of the professors saw the swing and was like, well, I don't know. I said, hey, want to go on? She sits down. I say, can I push you? And all of a sudden, her legs start going. I came back, but her hands on the chains were white knuckles, like this. But then, legs start going, and all of a sudden, relaxed. Smile goes from to smile, just like you're doing. And then she's going high enough. I say, you gonna jump off? But she stops with her feet in the gravel, good old way to stop. She stands up and then she looks at me right on camera, caught on camera. She looks at me and goes, why haven't I done that in the last 40 years? What you feel is joy as adults, we rarely share with children. If you right now, you think about it, you're gonna do it in your head right now. This gentleman and Lisa took me to Long South Lake. How do you say it, Lisa? Yeah, there you go. And we were walking for 12 kilometers on Sunday, and we did physical activity thinking, 26,000 steps, 132 minutes of moderate activity, 1,381 calories. That's physical activity thinking. But for me, physical literacy was, I got to have my funky footwear and go up and down fun area. I got to connect with nature, connect with people I haven't seen before. That's physical literacy thinking. Okay? But I also got risky play. I was walking along on a trail, Pilo was behind me, and then he saw this snake called, and Canadians, we like creatures. I see the snake, and I grab it. Because I know this snake. I know it's like, whoa, you crazy? No, I know how to deal with snakes. So I grab it, I stop it from moving. I'm not pulling it back, then I just hold it there for a second, it's happy, it's looking at me. Yeah, you're big, it looks at me, you're a big creature. Don't stomp on me. We're communicating together. And it's not curling up or about to bite, but I'm ready. You know, I don't want to have a bite from a adder, a black adder, not good. Anyway, so it goes on, I grab it again, we communicate, have a little moment. I had some risky play, right? But risky play isn't typically that. But for people, children, and adults, risky play could be standing on top of that chair. And if you're 5 years old, standing on top of that chair, that's oh, such great heights, isn't it? Standing on top there, oh, such great heights. And if you have 2 chairs and you put a blanket and you have a 5-year-old, they get lost. If you put them in a shopping cart at IKEA and move quickly, woo, moving fast. And if you give them a spoon and a piece of plastic that they can drum, oh, such dangerous tools. Huh? And Pilo would love rough and tumble play too. He's in martial arts. Because you can learn how to self-regulate, differentiate between violence and physicality. Very important in society. Young men in hockey don't know that difference. I work in hockey extensively. That's a tragedy. They need rough and tumble play to understand the difference between aggression and physical. Critical part of physical literacy is that. Now, I just talked about risky play, didn't I? And you're all now thinking, when was the last time I did risky play? For me, May 1st. My friend the adder, the snake, some risky play. The rest wasn't that risky for me because I like walking on tough terrain. But the snake was risky. I'm not thinking I want you to think about the snake. I want you to think about your last time you did risky play. Put it in your head. High speed, great heights, dangerous elements, rough and tumble play, getting lost. And I want you to talk to somebody you don't know, turn to them, and explain your favorite risky play experience. Right now, go, go, go. Just go, talk. Your favorite risky play. And pause just for a second. I apologize for putting smiles on your faces again, remembering the joy of movement. Interesting, right? And I'm gonna let you continue your stories in a second. But isn't the story that you're telling to an adult the most important thing to tell to your child today? And I almost guarantee you've never communicated what you're communicating to an adult, to a child. Because our world's changed. They used to go 10 kilometers on their own in 1970, kids can only go 2 kilometers without a parent, and now it's 300 meters. They've lost connection with the world. They're not free-range chickens anymore. Interesting. They've lost risky play. Movement makes brain. Movement makes brain. This is a very valuable, I'm making you feel this, aren't I? This is a very valuable conversation to have with a child. Like my dad used to ride on the backs of grizzly bears. My dad would send me out to tickle grizzly bears because riding was too dangerous. I'm joking, of course, but he's right. Is he being serious? Lisa knows me, and that's not far from the truth, actually. I work with bears a lot where I live. I see 50 to 70 bears a year, easily, like this close, routinely in my life. So to me, bears aren't scary things. You have to respect them. How do you develop that respect? By being near bears. Otherwise, you're afraid of bears for your life, and you'll never go into the forest. This is not a good thing. Respect the bear. Like, this is important. How do you learn that? By navigating and negotiating the world. But if children are like this, 300 meters within a parent, it's tell me what to do. I don't know what to do in this environment. I don't know how to detect hazards, people, places, or things as hazards. So risky play is an important part of that, not the only solution, but you felt it. You had joy in your faces. There was intense conversation between two people about the joy of movement. Role modeling joy of movement is more important than saying, get fit, Canada. That's cool. Yeah, I want people to be fit, but how do you get there? So risky play is part of physical literacy, and I wanted you to feel that. So let's just take one more minute and share your last bits of your stories, of your experiences. Go ahead. And pause. You can listen to the amplitude of the conversation. Wasn't it intense? And I almost didn't want to stop you because you don't want to stop. Like, did you hear how loud you were? It's like, this is an engaging conversation. And that sharing is critical in society, valuing movement for its intrinsic reasons. Pretty cool. I make you feel that. We're going to do some more scarf work very quickly. Everybody, throw up your scarf as high as you can. Very good. Now you're going to do it again as high as you can, but hold it. Yeah, that's good. Then you're going to go like this and go in your head. 1, 2, you can do it in Swedish. 3, 4, and then just before it gets to the ground, snatch it. But I want you to think in your head how many seconds it's in the air. Go for it. Yeah, beautiful. Okay, ready? Now you're going to do it again, but you don't have to hit the ground. You're going to throw it up, clap once, and catch it. Go for it. Oh, gorgeous. You're so good. 2 claps. Better than Canadians. 5 claps. World record is 14. Ready, go. Try it again. Yeah, that's good. Hey, you know the people that are getting 10, 11, 12, like, not logo, mind you, but yeah. Did you see that? Pretty cool, right? Okay, I had you wouldn't have thought about this, had you throwing up and you know, 1, 2, then 5, I was like, whoa, like that was pretty good. And it's like 10 or whatever it is, doesn't matter. That was confidence building at the same time as competence building. But I didn't say, I'm gonna make you do 14 claps and steal your confidence before. I actually had you do it on your own, so you went. That was the game. That's a confidence and competence building activity, where I am not the expert teacher making you great, taking your confidence away from you. You did it yourself. You're going, yeah, I actually did that. You could actually do this. Go like this with the scarf, really quick, fast, 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 in front of you. No, throw, catch, throw, catch, throw, catch, throw, catch, throw, catch, throw, catch, throw, catch. Now close your eyes and do it. Very good, look at that. You would have said, how, I can actually juggle with my eyes closed. At Cirque du Soleil, we have blind jugglers. Totally blind. Pretty cool. They can do it. It's really interesting. Inclusion. But we're gonna try another thing now. Everybody, it's gonna be harder over there, but there's enough space right here. What I want you to do is start walking around, and you're gonna walk like this and throw catch. One hand, the other, and you're just gonna walk around. Keep going, and go around each other, in through each other, etc. And when you see somebody's eyes, say, hey, hey. See somebody in the eyes, hey, 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 hey. Okay, now when you're moving, oh, very good. And stop, beautiful. So I just had you moving, doing activity, collision avoidance, right? Collision avoidance, that's a skill, that's a competence. You need to avoid collision in life. Then I made it social, didn't I? Put the hey, hey. And all of a sudden you go, oh, this is social. I'm connected to a scarf. I'm learning new skills. This is really good. We're gonna understand this diagram in a second. I'm getting there. You're just going like, oh, yeah. He's using all of that. That's what I'm doing. So hang on. We're gonna keep moving, and I'm gonna go high, high, low, low. So you're gonna keep walking like you're doing. High, high, listen, low, low. Okay? Keep going. Move. High, high. High, 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 high. Low, 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 low. Low, 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 low. High, 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 high. High, high, high. Low, 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 low. High, 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 high. Keep moving. And pause. Excellent. So if I would have videotaped this right now and sent it to a bunch of 12-year-olds, they'd go, oh, you guys are all doing performing arts. You're all artists. That was a beautiful scarf show. We're gonna actually go into the center of Go City and do a flash mob later on. Okay, so next thing we're gonna do, you're gonna find a partner very quickly and just start throw catching with your partner. Go for it. Throw catch, throw catch. Throw catch, throw catch, throw catch, throw catch. Yeah, you can, yeah. You can do it with 3 people. Three, yeah. And pause. Now what you're gonna do is you're gonna throw overhand, catch underhand. Throw overhand, catch underhand. Go for it. And pause. Now what you're gonna do is every time you throw, clap your hands. Go. And pause. So good, so good. What you're gonna do now is one person's gonna throw. They could clap, spin, they could sit, squat, they can do whatever you want. You can do what you want, you can do what you want. Don't do the same thing. Ready, go. And pause. Now, what I could do at this moment is have you change partners. We could do the walk around and do, hey, hey, and I go and you stop and you all move and mix, and then you find a new partner. You don't choose your partner. And I could actually go through everybody. So you learn how to move with every other person, independent of ability, independent of style, anything. Do you follow what I'm doing here? Everybody learns to move with everybody. There's no right or wrong with this, is there? And you're failing sometimes, but it's part of success, not the opposite of success. Do you follow this? So that failure is not to be avoided. Oh, I'm getting better. This is pretty cool. This is physical literacy. we're gonna continue on here. What I'm gonna do now, because I could change partners, change the audience, also change the way you throw and catch. Social communication's happening there. You'll learn more by moving with two people than you do by going, hi, I'm Dean. That's a good thing to do, but it's also really good to move together and go, oh, I kind of get you now. You're like this, you see? So next thing we're gonna do, you're gonna create a group of 4, and you're gonna create a juggling show. Ready, go. Pause. I apologize, I made a big mistake. First we went from throw to catch, and then I call it a juggling show, didn't I? Didn't I? Now, some people would have felt that when I said juggling show, because all of a sudden it's like, oh, there's performance now, as opposed to just moving for fun. Some people go, ooh, I'm not liking this. They would have felt a little bit about that. That's purposeful. But I could take your group of 4 right now, take the 2 tallest people and change. You're not going to because you haven't got time. And then you change the group of 4 again. I change the audience. You see what I'm doing? Different social connection, different way of negotiating between 4 people, and I'd keep doing that continuously. Keep going here. What you're gonna do is I want you to feel this, and as 2 things. 1, I give you permission to be creative. We need to do that for people, even kids. You're all in rectangles. That's okay. You could be in a line, some person could be on the ground sitting, some person could close their eyes, you could be going, you could do anything you want in your juggling show. I like beautiful rectangles, but maybe we could explore whatever you want to do in your juggling show. Okay? Ready, go. And pause. Okay, wonderful. Can't stop you now. I went from telling you what to do, prescriptive, throw with your right, catch with left, throw, catch with your foot. Remember that? Now I've given you, instead of prescription of activity, which is good, creative components, right? Now this is your juggling show, right? I own the show. It's your show. When you own a show, it's your movement. It stills commitment, which is really important. Many times in sport and recreation, even in performance arts and phys ed, we are very prescriptive to people. Do this, don't do that. Can't you read the rules? But I'm giving you freedom to be creative, and the mood in the room changed immediately. Once again, just like talking about risky play. You had to negotiate about your show. That's an important task. You had psychological changes that were happening, physical changes, social changes, and creative changes. Those are 4 important domains. That's part of physical literacy. We're not going to do this, but I need you to feel this. We're not going to do this. You're going to practice for 4 minutes. Then each group, you're going to sit down in your chairs. Each group's going to come up here, do your juggling show performance. We're going to YouTube live stream it to the world. Okay, some of you are going like, yeah, I'm in. The other ones go like, no freaking way am I coming up on that stage. If I didn't ask your permission, what I was doing, I went from 2 people juggling to 4, different 2s. But going from 4 people up here in front of 50, that's a huge step in the audience effect. That creates social inhibition, a dagger in your back, a psychological dagger. Not for everybody. For those people who said, hey, it's no problem to get up here, good. But you should look beside the people going looking at the ground really, really hard, saying, I'm not coming up there. They're real. We should never create social inhibition in people. You must ask their permission to do that. If not, you like hurting people. And I will call you out for that. Physical literacy never socially inhibits people, ever. We occasionally do, but what you do is that's how much you've been doing in the past, this is how much you do it now. So just stand there for a second, let's look. In our little activities, were you developing movement competencies? Many. Throw, catch, collision avoidance, right? We could probably list 20 different movement skills you're developing, right? Were you developing confidence at the same time that you're doing this? Yep, I saw pretty much that happening. So if you're competent and confident, and it's a two-way street, and as the instructor, I designed this lesson plan so that your competence and confidence was co-developing. It was. You're catching it better. That means that if you have these two things, that means in self-determination theory, science, you become self-competent. You believe in yourself. And we know from that science, if you feel self-competent, it drives you to be motivated to keep doing it. I couldn't stop you. But I also did this. When you were moving together, I created various forms of connection. I made you connected to objects, your lovely purple scarf or your lovely orange one. No, I want the green one. And you got connected to your scarf. That's my scarf. You got connected to people when you're in groups of two. I changed the people. You got connected to groups. I could have changed the groups, right? You maybe got slightly more connected to yourself when you're talking and laughing together about why haven't I done this in a long time? Self-connection. I didn't bring in a snake, but my dogs, I have 3 dogs, they're missing me immensely right now. I'm connected to them, or nature. So connection, I was exploiting here in this entire exercise to make you remember, if you're connected, it drives a basic human need called relatedness. And we know for sure, if you feel related, it drives motivation to continue. And interesting enough, if your thing was scarf juggling, and that was your movement voice, and we found your movement voice, we grew your movement voice, you used your movement voice, and the people around you accepted your movement voice, you belong. Belonging through movement. Did you feel that? I don't put the word belonging on here because belonging can come from other things. But I want every person in Sweden to belong through movement. Find their movement voice, maybe more than one, so that if the pandemic comes, they've got options instead of one thing in their life. They have one thing they love, maybe a few, and many other things. That's physical literacy. Was it fun is when you're distracted? There was distracting moments today from life's turmoil. We had fun. You also had pleasure, which is you were getting better, and I was liking getting better. That's pleasure. They're slightly different. But then you're stopped now, and you're thinking back, was that fun or pleasurable? Yeah, that's enjoyable. Now, if I'm a phys ed teacher, I want more pleasure than fun. Fun's good, pleasure's better. If I'm a recreation leader, maybe it can be all about fun. If I'm a coach, more pleasure than fun, but fun sometimes too. Both are good because they create enjoyment. Looking back, was it fun? Yeah. Was it pleasurable? Yeah. That drives motivation. There's many ways of turning this on, right? For some of you, it was through connection. For some of you, it was pleasure. Some of you, it was getting better at something. Agency. If I equip you to do this on your own, if you've got kids and you want these scarves, you'll be doing this with your kids. And then they'll do it with others. That means you can self-organize your own behavior, a child or an adult. I can choose. I don't need structure. Structure's good, but unstructured choosing, just like I showed you before, if you're physically literate, the pandemic doesn't stop your activity. You've got a diversity of options to you. If I only have CrossFit and it closes, when's it opening again? If I'm a hockey player at 21, my identity is tied to hockey, and I have nothing else in my life. Junior hockey stops, my life goes like this. Because my identity is based on one thing. It's fragile. Do you follow me? This is about creating a robust identity through movement. So you don't get PTSD, basically, or don't go through crisis problems. No longer scary, right? Everything in here is about intrinsically valuing movement, not being told, read the guide and do it so you don't get disease. That's okay. But this is, how do we do this in sport, recreation, performing arts, phys ed, different movement sectors? Use this. How do we design playgrounds to make that happen. I do that all over the world. Let's have a seat now. Thank you very much for doing some activity. And I'm going to give you a couple more slides. This is very good. You can. It's interesting enough, after an experience like that, having people talk is actually really important, and I hate stopping you. But this diagram will just remind you about what we just did. I constructed a positive challenge for everybody. My lesson plan that I just went through was a construction of positive challenges. So that while you actively participated in this beautiful movement space, almost every one of you left with a positive movement experience because we activated the physical literacy engine in different ways for everybody, but that's okay. And we used movement, we used the physical movement, and we got benefits psychologically, we got benefits socially, and we got benefits creatively. Movement was the vehicle of change in 4 domains. That's what we see as movement. Sport does that, recreation does that, performance arts does that. So to me, it's not about get fit, Canada. That's one part of this. Not get 60 minutes of sweating. You don't see that in this diagram, but if I moved you faster, you'd all be pretty fast. I could have had you move faster instead of clapping, doing a squat every time, right? I could have physical literacy enriched this activity to make it fitness oriented, and you would have been laughing, doing laps. No joke. Very easily. Physical literacy enriched games can happen. Physical literacy enriched fitness can happen. Physical literacy enriched physical activity can happen. Physical literacy enriched environments can happen. Physical literacy enrichment is based on this thinking. And we've had many great success stories around the world to do that. And so that we now have tied through science that if you use this engine, you can create belonging, you can create resilience, you can foster creativity, you can improve self-esteem, you can improve decision-making, you can create empathy and acceptance of other people of different abilities. You can create a robust identity that isn't fragile and go into crisis. And you'll create a healthy risk perspective. Physical risk and psychosocial risks. No social inhibition. So what does this look like? Just a couple minutes left for me. Quite a number of years ago, we wrote a paper about using physical literacy in all of those movement sectors. And of course, there's more. We don't put everything in the title, we'd like to. But we wrote a paper about why is physical literacy so important in sectors where there's movement. And we started many years ago talking about physical literacy enriched communities, which Lisa's talked about, and what does that look like? We don't want the continual trend of declining physical activity and fitness, but you can't say, get going, Sweden. You have to go, well, the environments have changed. If you're a parent in this room, as soon as sports started up, you started driving your kids again. If you had 3 kids, you became a chauffeur. You became a spectator instead of taking care of your own health. I get it. Why are you a spectator? Is that what you want your kids to turn into? No, you don't. If you actually explore that, you go, yeah, I'm living for my kids, but not for myself. This is interesting. You felt that. I can hear a pin drop. But physical literacy enriched communities, why this is such a cool meeting, requires all of these sectors to sit around the table and talk for the first time. Physical literacy brings everybody to the table. Nobody owns it. So you get the arts culture coming to the table. Because if you just say sports and physical activity, we get pissed off. If we're from circus, we go, well, what? We're just physical activity? Why don't we call it circus and other activity? Like, no, it needs to be inclusive. Well, we need our environmental designers. We need the parents. We need immigration here, vocation, education, leisure. There's more than this. Justice. Physical activity is one of the best things you can do for mental health, which is related to problems related to opioid use. Our drug addiction programs in Canada, many of them use physical literacy. And they have much higher, not physical activity, physical literacy enriched activities like we just did. Not just becoming a sweaty mess. Our outcomes are way better. Less death. That's a pretty nice outcome. So physical literacy is all about developing competence and confidence at the same time, and never eroding somebody's confidence, but learning how to build confidence intentionally. Because most people say, is confidence important? You'll go, yeah. How are you doing it? Oh yeah, it's important, yeah. How do I do that? We're so focused on technical, physical, that we forget the psychological. So, let's keep going. If you become competent and confident, parents like the word inner trust. Swedes like the word trust. I do too. Inner trust is belief in oneself. I want everybody to believe in themselves. I want everybody to be fostering their creative potential through movement. We did that right now. Not just doing what a parent tells you, but giving them part of the process of engaging and being problem-solving, explorative, decision-making on your own. I want belonging to happen. You get these slides, you can read them later. Belonging through movement is vital in society. Engagement in society. This is called social sustainability, making sleek, stark people so they can flourish and find their potential, not just meet a guideline. Everybody has a different level of ability, right? And if you can find, and you can have different physical levels of ability, different psychological levels of ability, different social levels of ability, right? Pro-social. If you have a 5-year-old, some of them would grab that scarf, it's mine. Some 5-year-olds, oh yeah, we can juggle. Some not. But you want asocial behavior to become pro-social, right? That's important. So people have different levels of ability, not just on the physical side, but all of them. And we just want people to go up the staircase and all through movement. That's the game. So that if you have different levels of ability, it becomes really important not just to teach to the middle or teach to the bottom or teach to the top. Because if it's too easy, I'm out. If it's too hard, I'm out. If it's just right, I'm in. Pleasure, this is good. So physical literacy says that we have to have optimal challenge so you engage everybody. So there's a level of challenge for all levels of ability. Does your community have a level of challenge for all levels of ability? In my city, it is required by my mayor that all facilities are designed based on that principle. If you have a toboggan slide where you slide on snow, you have to have a steep one, a little one like that, and one for beginners. You can't make one toboggan slide in my city. It's not allowed. It's against the law. You must provide a level of challenge to all levels of ability. That's a policy. That's pretty powerful. And therefore, through movement, you can get benefits in the domains. And this is another law that in my city, there must be a type of challenge for all interests. So everybody belongs. It's not just soccer and hockey. We need everything for everyone. So we've created an entire framework called Physical Literacy Enriched Environments. You see how beautiful that is? We have a Zamboni, you know, the thing that makes ice for in hockey arenas, and it actually makes our sidewalks like that. That's not scary in Winnipeg. That's a sidewalk in Winnipeg. Yeah, it's like, well, what? It's like, you're being serious? Yes. As a result of this design frame, it's being used in Umeå, in Stockja, on the island in Umeå called the Island. It's being used 200 places around the world, this concept. It takes universal design, accessible design, and kicks that up a notch using the principles I just told you to create environments where everybody can participate. So there's a big talk in Stockholm, and when we did it, do you know how many people came to this talk? 500 people. Architects, city designers, learning about physical literacy enriched design. How is that different than what we've been doing? We all started talking. It was very engaging to say, what does that look like? And even your planning department, this is one of their documents, now identifies physical literacy enriched design. Your government does. May not have known that. Good to know that document exists. You can read about it later. So it's all about creating peoples, programs, and places simultaneously considered. We don't use the term in physical literacy active transport, not that that's evil. We like to say mobility enriched. We don't talk about falls prevention in Canada. We still do. It's getting rid of it. Because if you say falls prevention, that's very fearful to an adult. And we stay indoors for 6 months. Not good. But you know what? If you make a person like me get a curling rock and a broom, and you make me wear on one foot a slippery thing, I drive to the curling rink, I walk out of my car, walk on ice. I curl for 3 hours. I walk on the parking lot that's slippery, walk up my stairs that are slippery. But in the curling rink at 60, I become a competent, confident mover on ice so that I don't fall on ice and I leave my house in the winter. I don't fracture my hip when I do fall. Curling saves lives because it creates physically literate people on ice. Cool. So we don't talk about falls prevention, we talk about mobility enhancement. We talk about explorative as opposed to fear of the world. And we create environments like this. This is my city, physical literacy enriched. So this is a time lapse. This is a physical literacy enriched environment. When we just did physical activity, 3,000 people a day. This center, this is minus 25, by the way. That's warm for us where I live. Minus 25, we went from 3,000 people a day, did physical literacy enrichment. It went to 70,000 people a day. In the winter, minus 25. That's an impressive environment, but we had, look at this, a level of challenge to every level of ability, a type of challenge for all interests, not just hockey. And also, the principle here is also called movement intersection, where people of different levels of ability are moving with each other, right? Different levels of ability, new skaters, old skaters, bikes, sleds, things. There's every movement there. There's ski tracks all around this, fat bike courses, and they intersect with each other for social reasons, and they go, oh, I can come back there and I can do snowboarding, or I can go snowshoeing, as opposed to have over there a skate facility, over there a ski facility, over there a bike facility. Movement intersection. I just want you to see that so you can get a sense for, if you do create a physical literacy council, there's a lot of things that you can do. There's no community in the world that's physically literate yet, but there's diamonds, 200-300 diamonds. Nobody's got the diamond necklace yet, but that's your job. What diamond do you want to pick? There's hundreds of diamonds to do. You've got access to me. Tom's going to talk about this now, about what they've done in Umeå. So what we can do is just maybe have a quick stand up. I'm going to finish now. Tom, you can come on up here, stand up, walk around, talk about what you did. Tom's going to set up at his computer and talk about what they've done in Umeå. No.